Hello, and welcome to Markets in Focus. My name is Joe Bell, and today I'm going to walk you through some of the most interesting financial market themes that I'm observing. So we've had a little bit of selling in the U.S. equity markets that began in August. So let's talk a little bit about that weakening equity momentum and some of that weak market breadth underneath the surface. Number two, big September Fed meeting. It was not a surprise. They paused, did not hike, did not cut. Let's take a look at the expectations from the Fed committee members, the dot plot, and what they're seeing through the end of the year, where they expect one more rate hike. Markets disagree. And finally, U.S. government shutdown seems to be all but in the books. We will see if there's a last minute Hail Mary, but expected that U.S. government shutdown. This will be the 23rd shutdown since 1976. So has happened before. Let's take a look at some stats on what the market's reaction historically has been. So U.S. equity momentum we have on the chart here, S&P 500 up top, down below a measure of market momentum and the amount of participation or the market breadth across that index. First off, a couple notes, S&P 500, since the end of July 31st, S&P 500 is down nearly 6%, 5.8% to be exact. Percentage of stocks above their 200-day moving average, that's simply a measure of stocks in long-term uptrends or long-term downtrends. That figure came in at 44%. What does that mean? That means despite the S&P 500 being up nearly 14%, so far this year, we have 56% of the stocks in that index that are in long-term downtrends. What stocks are those? Well, pretty much anything outside the large cap tech space, mostly focused in the small cap space, where you look at lots of underperformance from stocks that are in the Russell 2000 index. Those are a lot of those small cap companies have struggled this year. Most of the upside is from those large cap tech names. So big meeting, September meeting by the Fed, no rate hikes, no rate cuts, as I said. So that pause is in place. A little bit of a disagreement between the market and the Fed right now. The Fed speakers do a vote every time they give their outlook for each end of year rate to give a projection of what they're expecting to be transparent. And right now, if you look at that, you've got the first set of dots, if you will. Each dot represents a committee member's vote or a committee member's survey of what they expect the Fed funds rate to be. And you can see each set of dots is going 2023, 2024, 25, 26, and then the longer run average. The takeaway from this is of the members, right? The 19 Federal Reserve Committee voting members, 12 of those 19 expect the Fed funds rate to be higher than it currently is by the end of the year. So that's one more rate hike. 7 of those 19 Fed committee members do not expect the Fed funds rate to go up any higher, but expect a pause. If you look at the Fed fund futures, these are the CME futures where people put real money down. And so you can interpret what the market's expectations and the probabilities are of the Fed's actions through the end of the year. Market says they're not going to do anything. And those historically, as we near those Fed meetings, have been pretty good predictors, but we have seen some volatility so far. So right now, market's expecting a pause. The Fed, although not unanimous, the majority says one more rate hike to end the year. I think we'll probably see that pause. So government shutdown, that's probably the big headlines you've seen coming across CNBC, even some of the major news channels. Gridlock in Washington, seems what most consistent headline over time. But let's take a look at the stats, right? This is not new. Since 1975, we have had 22 shutdowns. This will be the 23rd if it does occur on midnight on Saturday. Historically, they don't last very long. Number one, they last about 9 days on average. The median shut down 5 days, so not too much, right? You've got that between 5 and 9 days, depending if you're looking at the average and median. They typically reverse course. One thing to note, historically, government workers who will not be receiving pay during that shutdown, they typically get back pay, but any federal contractors, think a lot of those big defense contractors, they typically don't get back pay during those periods. So you're going to see a little bit of a potential shock to the economy if that happens in the short term. Average S&P 500% return during the shutdown, 0.3%. Average 12-month after the shutdown ends, S&P 500 equity market index up 12.7%. What does all that mean? What it means is the market has seen this before. The market typically looks past it, looks towards that shutdown. It's not good news for Washington, but if you're talking about investments, if you're talking about the equity market reaction, you don't want to overreact to this news. Historically, the market takes it in stride. Finally, some good / bad / interesting, depending on what lens you're looking at this story from. Off the coast, I think it was about 80 miles off the coast of Georgia, the Coast Guard stumbled upon a gentleman who was in what cannot be described as anything other than a giant hamster wheel boat floating device of some kind that was self-made. He did not have it registered when they asked him for it. The gentleman said he was on his way to a destination, oh, by the way, 4,000 miles away in England. They deemed his vessel to be unsafe. He threatened suicide a couple times. It took several days for him to get off the boat. Seems perhaps he's not totally sane, but this is not the first time that he's done that. Apparently, this is his fourth attempt to go long distance in different bubbles and hamster wheel type craft. But he does have a little bit of credibility, and I have to give him a little bit of respect. It seems like this is not his first foray into the unventured territory, if you will. He tried to Forrest Gump style cross the country back several years ago on foot and was successful, not once, but 2 different times, was covered by Vice for some of these outlandish goals. This time he has his sights set on the ocean. And if history repeats itself, I think he's going to try this again. So we may be reporting on him again in the future. But with that, I want to thank everyone for watching, and I will see you next time.